Joining me now is one of the state's biggest advocates for same-sex marriage. Ross Levi is the executive director of the Empire State Pride Agenda. Ross, it's great to see you.
Great talking to you, Liz, as always.
So explain to me how it is that coordination of this sort is actually going to win, whereas in 2009 things went awry in the Senate.
Well, a lot has changed since 2009. The number one thing that's changed is that the people are on our side. Just 2 years ago, it was 51% of New Yorkers that were in support of marriage. That was a majority, but still within the margin of error. That's now 58%, a solid supermajority at this point, consensus numbers. That's a big difference.
True.
And certainly having Governor Cuomo on our side, an outspoken advocate and leader on this issue from the day he announced, who remains as popular as ever, maybe more so, that only adds and makes it better. And then when you put on top of that the idea that there is this unified voice now, this unity in our community, forming a coalition to tell the world in a very formal way that we are unified, we are united in our goal, and we're going to be coordinating closely to make sure that this is the strongest campaign it can be.
Do you think then in 2009 you had a governor at the time, David Paterson, who was quite supportive of this, and he actually cast it as the civil rights agenda of his time, the civil rights battle of his time. Of course, it's a big deal coming from the state's first black governor. But was he not powerful enough to get it done? Was that the problem?
Well, the good news is that Andrew Cuomo is as committed to this as David Paterson was, and David Paterson was committed to this to his core. The great news is that Andrew Cuomo is probably a historically popular governor, probably our most popular governor in the last 10 years or so. So to have that strength on our side really emboldens us and really puts us in a great position to continue working on this issue.
You know, the Times story on this today suggests that what happened in 2009 was that there was miscommunication and that there was also a crucial under expectation or misjudging of the other side. Do you believe that that's true?
I think the important thing now is to think about how do we capitalize on where we are. Certainly a lot has changed, and I would say for the better. As a result of this past election, Albany has gotten the message after the LGBT community and its allies have shown our strength. For example, there were 2 decades-long anti-LGBT incumbents who are no longer in Albany, one Democrat and one Republican. That's something that legislators are aware of. Like I said, more New Yorkers have heard the stories of same-sex couples and seen us live our lives, just taking care of each other in sickness and in health, trying to provide for our children. That has made the public more supportive of us. So all that comes together in a really good and powerful way.
Well, you're talking about, of course, Bill Stokowski and Frank Padovan. Those are the 2 who are no longer around. I believe that's who you're talking about. But don't you think, though, in order to move forward and to learn lessons from the past, you have to recognize what it was that went wrong in the past so you can then improve on it and avoid those pitfalls in the future? So what is exactly what you're seeking to avoid with the new day? It's not just because you have 2 people who were problems who are gone.
Right. Well, but I mean, some of it wasn't a matter of avoiding. You know, there was a coup. There was trying to survive that coup. It was a pretty chaotic year in Albany, as you'll well remember. So it's not so much about avoiding; it's about maximizing. It's about taking what worked, making it better. More coordination is always good, and certainly things can be improved on. So we're thrilled to be part of this unified coalition now that's speaking in one voice. That's a matter of improvement, along with these other factors that I've been talking about.
Okay, so apparently you're seeking to raise $1 million. That's big money in a short period of time. And how exactly are you going to go about doing that? Will there be events?
Well, I'm not sure that there is any consensus about raising $1 million. First of all, the great news is that each of these organizations come to New York State or already here in New York State with resources to bear. So the good news is we're using a lot of that strength and doing it, as I said, in a coordinated fashion to make sure we're not duplicating efforts, to make sure we're having the maximum impact on what we do. So to some degree, it's at least that. But yes, we realize the hard work that lies ahead. We have to make sure that our elected officials hear the will of the people, that they see the 1 mile wide, 1 mile deep support for marriage. And that's the hard work that lies ahead.
I'm actually confused then, because in this coordination, do you have to create a separate sort of umbrella entity under which everyone will be, I mean, according to news reports, hiring a strategist, Jennifer Cunningham, who's used to be very close to the governor. Actually, she was part of the reason why he was so successful in winning his Attorney General's race in 2006.
Yes, we've jointly retained Jennifer and her shop so that we have a person who day to day is concentrating and giving us the support we need to make sure we can have this coordination that we're so interested in having. It's mainly a matter of taking it to the next level. Our groups have been talking regularly for a while now, but it's a matter of taking it to that next level and having somebody who's well-respected and an expert and frankly just has the resources to give us that support and do that in a supported way is what we're looking for here. It's not a matter of a separate organization.
I see.
It's a matter of forming a coalition together. We remain our individual organizations, but we have said we wanted the world to know that we are speaking with one voice, that we are being strategic, and that we are working hard with one common goal to make sure that loving, committed same-sex couples have the ability to marry, the ability to take care of each other, and the ability to take care of their children.
So there's supposedly, what is the timeline here? Because the last time you and I spoke about this, you were actually in Albany for a not-so-secret strategic meeting with the governor. It was, again, reported by the Times. It was held on the second floor of the Capitol behind closed doors. But advocates came out and said, this is a really great thing. We are very encouraged that the governor is behind us. He personally put himself on the line for this, but there was no timeline, no date by which he committed to actually seeing something tried to push through the Senate. So do we have a date yet?
Well, you know the way Albany works, Liz. It's not about a date, because those things change all the time. It's about making sure we could have a successful vote. We know how many weeks there are left in session, so there's certainly a deadline there. We're going to be continuing to work every day, ramping up the volume, ramping up the momentum, ramping up the pressure to try to get this for our families. We need it. I mean, if it was up to us, we would have had this years ago. So we're going to just continue fighting to have the victory that we need.
And you and I talked about this during the election last year. And one of the things was that your organization and others wanted to hold people accountable, and it was no longer about party affiliation, but it was about this particular issue, correct? And holding people accountable on their votes in one way or the other, right?
Yes, that still remains true. This isn't a partisan issue.
Okay.
There are Democrats we're going to continue talking to and convince. There are Republicans that we're going to be talking to and convince.
Okay, so if that's in fact the case, assuming that this push is so personal for the governor, I mean, he has a lot riding on this at this point. If he's not capable in some way, and he's been very successful up to this point in pushing through his agenda, but you're talking about a very contentious issue, a social policy issue that some people have very strong feelings about on the opposition side. I mean, if he's not successful, what's that going to mean for you? What's that going to mean for him and for the movement?
Well, first of all, I'd like to just quickly address the idea of it being a contentious issue. Like I said, at this point when it's 58%, and that goes upstate, downstate, that's across the board. When you go to places like Long Island and Westchester, this actually polls in the mid-60s. I'm not sure it's the contentious issue it was anymore. I mean, you know, even nationally, the 4 latest polls nationally have shown this is now a majority of Americans.
True.
Even amongst Republicans in New York,
Ross,
this is almost an even split.
Ross, I agree.
Yes.
I agree with you, and I think many people do. But the people who continue to be opposed feel very passionately about it. I mean, they're quite
Yes.
outspoken.
Yes. No, I think that's right. And so I think that's the work that lies ahead, is to let them hear more. And not just hear from us, though as important as that is, hearing from their LGBT neighbors and living their lives, but also make sure that they're hearing from communities of faith, making sure they're hearing from organized labor, making sure they're hearing from the business community, making sure they see the mile-wide, mile-deep support for this issue, because that's mainly the work. This isn't no longer trying to just work a political game. This is really just getting about Albany to do the will of the people.
Well, the stakes obviously are quite a bit higher than they used to be, and we'll be looking for this coordinated campaign whenever it materializes. Any idea about when these ads are going to hit the airwaves, when we're going to start seeing the fruits of this coordination?
Well, you're seeing some of the fruits today. The coalition officially launched today. We're telling the world about our presence, and I think what you're going to see now is a steady momentum build of showing this support, using all the tools in the toolbox to get our message out, that this is what New Yorkers want. It's the right thing to do. It's the fair thing to do. It's a way of protecting families.
Okay, well, we'll be looking for it. Ross, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Liz.